Panda Anthem.
Ian, what's up?
Red Panda Anthem.
Red Panda, what's good?
Red Panda Anthem.
Okay, let's get maybe two more questions before we call it a night.
All right. Eden, unmute yourself.
Good evening. Thank you for being here, Rachel. It's awesome. Thanks, you guys, for all you do. I had just a quick question about once you're over. Okay, if let's say TD Ameritrade, I think they have a limit for 550,000 that you can have prior to FDIC insurance is no longer applicable. Once you go over that point, what do you do? How are you able to transfer funds? Do you just open multiple accounts and that's how it works, or what's the?
I think, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the bank is 250,000, but for brokerage, nothing is FDIC short for an investment. That's correct, Rachel?
Yeah, he's talking about the SIPC insurance, which is much more limited. You're correct.
On the money market.
FDIC insurance.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So there isn't much you can do. And that SIPC insurance really only takes care of you in the case of fraud or, yeah.
And you always got to look at like, what's the worst that can happen? Anything can happen.
If I always factored in, Shadi, please drive that home. Oh my, yes.
Anything can happen. That is a fact. So, it's even like there's lessons and everything, and like just strategically how Putin's been able to kind of hide his money. And there's so much stuff that I'm even learning, like from a sophisticated standpoint of like different places people do. It's like this wealth game is a whole system. It's levels. Like, I mean, like there's big levels that people take to, protect their assets, put it in trust and take it out their name and offshore account. There's so much different stuff because it's like, ultimately nobody's more powerful than the government. And if the government wants to freeze your money, whether it's the IRS, whether it's, whatever, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
There's levels.
No, it's really over. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. They could take your house. Mm-hmm. They could take your bank account. They can even take your crypto if they get access to it. So
yes, it's not decentralized as much as you guys think. I'm telling you, please be mindful. Hard wallet storage, but please be mindful. If things get really bad in this country and others, you will see your assets in crypto be stolen.
Yeah, there's a reason that they reached out to Brian Armstrong from Coinbase. There's a reason, right? Like there's a possibility that they could freeze accounts. So be very mindful of that.
And it's one of these things where it's like, there was a rush on banks a few years ago, I think in Greece, and everybody was like panicking. And, it's one of these things that like that can never really happen in America where, it can never happen until it happens. Be mindful. Be mindful. That's real. It's real though, right? It's always a conspiracy theory until it happens.
Right.
You are now tuned into the financial.
That's why I said, like,
podcast.
I think the point that you made that's super important is like the levels to this, man. Like,
no, it's a lot of levels.
There's so many levels. Like, we're just learning from like what's happening. Even like when we had the conversation about the SWIFT system, it was like, are people even familiar with like how that works and how you can be kicked off of that and how Russia got kicked off? And it's like, all right, well, they're gonna find another way, and then finding out how allegedly that the money's being moved and where it got moved and who moved it and how they. It's like, wait, this level like we had no idea. But this is a big game out here.
The world banking system is extremely complex, and it's like you can just spend a year just learning about all of these different world banks and the world banking system and the Swiss banking. So it's just so much stuff, and it's like a whole. Now I understand why lawyers and financial experts and why these people they have a place because you really can't gain this much information just by yourself. You have to actually be taught or have somebody around you that actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because especially when you start to deal with like real money, it just changes.
Yeah.
It really changes.
If I can ask really quickly, Rachel, for your ETF, is there any like risk mitigation procedures or protocols that you have in place, like in case China does try and invade U.S.? Like what risk mitigation factors do you have in place to protect those that are investing in your ETF?
So, well, I mean, it's really interesting. that we actually have a specific China researcher, and we frown upon companies that are just instruments of the government. We really expect like clear separation, true governance. So I believe that there's a lot of risk mitigation already happening just with our deep screening process. I mean, I have to tell you, we had one Russian company in the portfolio that we took a closer look at before the invasion. We're one of the only asset managers I saw whose trades cleared out of Russian companies because, you know, all the markets shut down. Yeah. So I do think that actually looking at these early indicators like surveillance, you know, we know how it's treated here in the United States, but it's bad everywhere. So if you're looking at, you know, the kind of country that will, you know, engage in surveillance and co-opt a private company in order to do that, right? I mean, like, you're going to have lots of issues with companies in that particular country. And that's why we have a special researcher just for that region. So, are
there any Russian or Chinese companies that are publicly traded that you love?
No.
I know you can.
I have to ask. The holdings,
if not, then we're going to kill me.
No, there are some in the portfolio. There's some cool companies.
There's some cool ones inside the portfolio. I look.
Yes,
go look at the holdings.
There are a few cool companies in the portfolio, but yeah, no, not in my favorites list per se.
We got you, Rachel.
Can we get one more question, Janet, before we
Sure. James Moore, we are coming to you.
Hey, peace. What's going on? Can y'all hear me?
What's going on,
James?
Hey, I wanted to ask Ian for the 2 Tech 2 Index. What is like the best way to take advantage of that using your Roth? So, you know, because it's only like a
$6,000.
Yeah, $6,000 cap. And just a question, all in whole to everybody is, what do y'all recommend doing with puts during like a recession?
Well, we have an amazing advisor here. I'll let Rashad take the Roth question. But if you message me privately via email, I'll be sure to get back to you tonight about it as well. And on the put side, I will say, please be careful. And if you guys are going to do puts, limit it to 3. And you have to know what the institutional levels are, where they're going to exit. If you don't, and I will argue from the trader's perspective, that is almost as important as knowing the yield curve and when quantitative easing starts or ends. Because if you buy puts at the wrong time and this market reverses, bye account.
That's risky stuff.
Please, Queen, tell them.
Yeah,
they don't want to hear from me.
Be careful. No, definitely be careful with that. You can really, lose quite a bit of money that way.
Thank you, gang. Thank you so much.
Don't lose your shirt out here, man. It's real.
And as far as the 2 Tech 2 Index, I mean, 6,000, you could just divide it by 4, put $1,500 in Apple, $1,500 in Microsoft, $1,500 in VOO, $1,500 in VTI. That's the ones that Ian talks about all the time. So you can just put, $1,500 in each one of those and, divide up that $6,000 and just move forward that way.
I have a question for Rachel. How do you feel about the 2 Tech and 2 Index strategy, and how urgent is it for us to move over to more socially justice investing as people of color?
That's a great counter question, Janet.
What was the beginning? You said, how do I feel about the...
So Ian, I'll give some reference. So Ian has a strategy where he tells people to invest in 2 Tech and 2 Index. So 2 technology companies like Microsoft and Apple
and Microsoft. Yeah.
And then 2 indexes like, S&P 500 or JSTC, something like that.
Perhaps.
Something like that. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. That's the strategy.
It seems like what Ian's up to is trying to make sure that you have a good, solid footing on the index side and then giving you a little bit of room to play. And I think that for people to stay really interested and engaged with their investing, that is an important strategy. Like if you just go all the boring direction of, going all index investing, I think people can lose touch and lose enthusiasm for it. I heard you earlier, Ian, talking about pay attention because this can ruin your confidence and your balance. So in the account. So I actually think that it's a good strategy. I would just make sure that the 2 tech companies that you have, you're investing with it, money that's not part of your core strategy long-term, right?
Say that last part again.
Pardon me?
Can you say the last part one more time?
Sure, the 2 tech, if you, if you know you need to hit a certain number that you're saving in order to like kind of hit whatever the goal is. And then I would do that with the extra funds that you're putting towards the goal, not necessarily the core. I would do all index for the core. And unfortunately, most of the indexes are investing like I'll find it on our website now that I figured out the chat function. Most of the indexes have various investments along the mass incarceration path and private prisons. I think we have so much money that we are like sitting on, and so much of the American public is just mindlessly investing in indexes. I will put in that race and finance. We wrote a whole series that I think you can inadvertently, if you're invested in a standard index, you will inadvertently be investing in whole systems that are doing nothing good for you, like as a member of the Black community or just, anybody.
We had this conversation?
I feel like it's tough because we want to make as much money in the market as possible. Yeah. And we need to make that money to catch up. But at the same time, there's all these social justice and, issues that we have to look at too. So. Yes, I'm showing you like that you don't actually have to give up return. That this is actually how you get the stable long-term return. There's just a big difference. You have to like widen the scope of like what the term is that you're looking at. If you're a long-term investor, this is the only way to go, right? Mm-hmm. Why would, there's like, I just have to ask people like, why would you invest in a business that's based on a resource that's going to stop coming out of the ground? Why would you base a whole business, or why would you base your future on a business that's mistreating people in whole communities, right? Like ultimately things that are unethical become illegal, and you don't want to be caught holding the bag when that happens. Like if we believe that the long arc of history is bending toward justice. So I actually think it's just a good risk mitigation strategy long term. It's no longer the case that you have to give up a lot of return, right? Just to be investing in alignment with your values. There's really smart people doing the work now who can find ways to maximize the return for you.
Are there any top 20 publicly traded companies that are clean per se, quote unquote?
Well, I have to be so.
I know. I wish we can. In private, this conversation would be incredible.
I have to be so careful with what I say. But take a look at our index. If you go to our website, so all of the constituents in the ETF are listed on the ETF website. And then we have an index, the Addisina Social Justice Index that we're tracking. And you can look, there are many companies that are doing the right thing. They have to be pretty intentional to do it because they have to hit all of those metrics. They have to be, good to all the communities and not extracting from people on the planet. In the end, is it way better if you invest in a small business that's doing something directly impactful? Like you'll probably have a greater impact that way. But what we're trying to do by investing in publicly traded companies is shift the levers of power, because it's the public companies that are the greatest actors in our society. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm a little tired of waiting for Congress to figure things out. In the meantime, as the shareholders of these companies, we can actually have a lot more of an impact that way. And that's something that we're about and up to.
Ian, there's a top 10 in there that's inside of their holdings that we speak about all the time. They may have had a split last year, so good for them.
Appreciate it.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Rachel, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
Please come back.
Are you coming to Texas?
No, not to South by Southwest. I think it didn't work out. Okay. But I would love to see y'all. And I think that maybe the event I was going to come to got rerouted.
The dinner situation. We had to, that was put on ice. But
okay, I got you.
But we're gonna be in Texas twice.
Okay. So. Well, let me know. I love this community. It's so supportive. I don't get to, I talk to, as you can imagine, the asset management industry is full of folks that don't look like me. So I talk to rooms full of people that look like the characters on Mad Men and not like all y'all. So it feels really good and welcoming to just talk to people that I know already get it. It's beautiful what you're doing. You make this work really accessible and you're answering people's real questions. So I just have a lot of respect for what you're doing too. Thank you.
No, I appreciate
everyone. Put Rachel in chat. She's absolutely amazing. Please come back. Rashad, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do want to give the queen her flowers. Please show her love. Please put her name in chat. How much do you want us to invest per person between Red Panda and the earners? I'm sure we can.
How many people do we have? Like, I'm like,
we got a few, 100,000, couple 100,000 that we can deliver. We get no money on the back end. We're doing it for the culture. Might clip this part up.
Culture with a K.
Yeah.
I would say invest in an amount that actually makes you excited. Like, don't invest in an amount that's like, oh, you'll forget about it. I actually want you to go back and check on it, see how we're doing, be actually invested in our success. And that's going to be different for everybody. So I want you to actually feel something when you invest.
Done.
So, if $5,000 doesn't make you kind of like a little queasy when you invest it, then, increase that amount.
Done.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Can you give the information, social media or website again before you?
Absolutely, because I have figured this. Okay, so my Twitter handle is at @RoboShowT. And on LinkedIn, somebody was so kind to put it in the chat earlier. I'm under Rachel Roboshowty at LinkedIn. Which apparently I did not come with all my handles ready.
LinkedIn.
That's a good idea.
The professional way to social network.
Yeah. I know. Like everybody's like, what? LinkedIn. I know. I'm getting up on the Instagram. Y'all let me know that I need to get up on Instagram. So I am. And see, look, my Instagram account's there. I just don't visit it very often. And thank you, Dan P, for putting all my links up.
Dan, you're amazing.
Well, shout out to Dan. I was just putting it. Dan, shout out to you.
Shout out to Dan. And then what's the website?
Adasina.com, ADASINA, and then it's text the word justice to 55444 if you want to sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get all the latest on what we're up to.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Rachel, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Feel free to come back anytime. Oh, shout out to Josh Brown too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, he connected it.
Yeah, he connected the dots on this situation. So shout out to Josh.
Market Monday's vet.
Yes, shout out to Josh. All right, Rachel,
come back, please.
We're gonna wrap up a little bit, but I'll let you go and enjoy your evening in California.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, y'all.
Have a good one.
There you have it.
This that Red Panda Anthem. Ian, what's up? This that Red Panda Anthem. Red Panda, what's good? Red Panda Anthem. Whole clip going up. I know they can't stand it.